You know, I imagine like Jim Lee had to have been a big, like being a face. You know, he was the biggest thing in comics.
Yeah.
And his story is, I don't know Jim, but I know a little bit about his story, and it's a little similar to yours. Like Ivy League school decides to sort of forego this.
I don't know if I recognized it at the time or if I would remember it, but for sure, his having done that, you know, it meant like somewhere in the universe that groove had already been, you know, been made, and I could maybe travel in there, you know. So the funny thing is though, when you know, I started seeing Jim's X-Men comics, you know, I wasn't really reading comics at the time, but then I would see these come out and they were great, and like you know, you'd never seen art like that before.
Right.
It really did revolutionize, you know, the approach to superhero comics and everything, and I liked it so much. In a way, like I'd been taught to not consider race so much, so that in a way I actually didn't connect with him on that level. Outside of the art, you know, because you know, I wasn't so into comics. I didn't know what he looked like, you know. I didn't know. Sure, and there's Stanley, you know. So like, I couldn't 100% be sure he was Asian.
Exactly.
You know, but that's the thing. It's like, growing up at a time when there wasn't as much representation, I got used to it, and then, but that's not a good thing, you know. And I've had to recalibrate over the years to not dismiss those who really crave it, because that's coming from a real place, you know. But just like, you know, the idea of leaving, you know, an Ivy League, you know, medical degree to go, you know, to do comics and succeed at it, you know.
And you're both pretty wildly successful in your own ways.
That's the weird thing, I think, is having to admit that there has been success, you know, because it feels premature always to say, you know. But, you know, like the book does well and people like my art, and so, that I should be able to say to myself, that is success, but, you know, I don't know if I can. Still can't. It's weird. I think you kind of wake up one day and like you realize that you've got a career, that you've somehow made a career out of this, and I don't know, every job was always an audition for the next job. So I feel like I didn't feel comfortable thinking that, you know, I was going to be able to do this if I wanted to, you know, for the rest of my life. You know, probably wasn't until the other day, really, that I thought, like, you know, it could be that, I could see myself having this long career, and...
Why specifically the other day?
I was feeling tired. You know, I was like, you know, just, the issue wasn't going so well, you know, and a little slow, and it just got me thinking about, like, the future, you know, like, how long can I do this? How long do I want to do this? And, you know, and I was like, I came to the realization, I was like, oh, you know, if I wanted to, and if I wasn't necessarily picky about what I was working on, that I could continue doing this for a while, you know, and to have that level of confidence, I guess, in the work, in my career was new to me. Like, I didn't realize I felt that way. But then, you know, there's just like the kind of day to day and not realizing that, you know, like when it became real to me is when I realized I had options on what I wanted to work on. You know, and that was because so much of it was kind of taking what was offered. You know, I had a long contract with DC that we just kept renewing, you know, year after year, and you know, but a lot of that meant that, you know, I didn't always feel like I could choose what I was going to work on. Like, something would come my way, and then it would, you know, be sold to me on a certain, you know, level, like, oh, this is going to be big, or this is part of the crossover, or, you know, and so I would feel like I'd have to take it. And then there'd be another project that, like, you know, I felt like I needed to do it because of a personal connection with somebody, or this or that, you know. But, you know, I did have the choice back then, you know, but I felt compelled, you know, because it's a business, because these are people that, you know, you can't always just be, you know, following your heart. And that was I don't know, part of me would like to have seen, you know, what would have happened if I hadn't done that. You know?
Well, you can rewrite your own theme as a creator over and over and over again until you get it right, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you get it so wrong that you're out. You know? The pressure I felt early on was a constant pressure, once I started getting work, was the constant pressure of everything might be the last thing. That if I fuck this one up, or people don't like this one, then I don't get a second try. And that can be unhealthy. You and I both been lucky enough that our creator-owned books have been successful and have probably afforded us some autonomy.
Yeah. I feel like there's always another hill to climb. There's other, you know, like in the distance at least, you know, there's always something that you can try. Sometimes it's just a process thing, you know. I'm deciding I'm going to start drawing with my foot, you know. Just so it's not so easy, you know.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and that can, you know, kind of keep you going for a little bit, you know, just try and making your life difficult or deciding that you're, you know, only going to draw a certain way. But that's kind of, it's really just a surface thing, you know, so it doesn't last long enough to really sustain your interest. So I feel like I swap between those and doing something that's more content-wise, you know, another hurdle, you know. So maybe the next thing is, you know, trying to write more for myself, you know, or think about writing for somebody else, or, you know, then, yeah, that job is so big that, you know, yeah, I guess that would be the last, you know, frontier.
Yeah.
You know, actually coming up with stories.
Set yourself up in a position where people will accept that you want to tell your own stories.
Well, that's the practical, you know, roadmap for it is, you know, and it's a weird thing where even if, say I happen to be, you know, even if it could be good or it could be bad, but it could be that nobody cares to begin with, you know? And so you kind of have to set that up to make people care. I'm not, you know, I don't have the best perspective on I don't understand why people like my work necessarily, you know? So, and that has led me to be more cautious about it or about my appeal, you know, in general, which I think is safe at least, you know. I'm not making any, you know, plans on, you know, based on, you know, on my popularity or whatever, but, you know, it's hard when the writers that I've worked with have been so, you know, have such a career and a fan base that, you know, it's hard for me to know whether I'm just like the plus one, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I love working with them, and hopefully some of what they've, you know, working with them has rubbed off on me, you know, a little bit. I mean, that's probably, you know, maybe more self-effacing than it needs to be, but it's, you know, I don't know, it's not a criticism of the art form, but more a criticism of how it gets marketed.
Yeah, I think part of it is that if you're a successful writer, you've usually done more than one project.
You have a pretty big track record.
Yeah, so people think,
yeah,
well, this guy's done 2 or 3 different things I enjoy, so
Yeah.
he's clearly the guy that's in charge of this and is making it go.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're the artist, you can only do one project at a time. So people are more likely to be like, well, maybe it's not that guy. Maybe that guy's replaceable.
Right.
You know, which most of the time, if you enjoy a book, that's totally not the case.
Yeah. You know, I think that's the interesting thing, is that nobody knows what these comics would look like if someone else had drawn them.
Yeah.
You know, like, so every comic that exists is that weird alchemy between, the writer and the artist, even if it's the same person, but you don't know, you can't really say so-and-so would be a better fit for this or whatever, because they didn't come up with it. They didn't, they didn't end up drawing it,
Right. Well, as long as you don't quit.
No, never quit. Can't quit now.
I gotta start to care. I gotta start to give a shit.
Right.
I gotta start to not quit. I got to start to care. I got to start to not. I gotta workshop that.
Yeah.